If your net worth is under $2 million, you have to watch this video until the end. I went from 1,000 to 1 million to over 100 million. That's why I can show you how to do the same. And if you like my content, I politely invite you to subscribe to receive more videos like this. Thanks. Well, before diving in, I'll give you the summary of this video. To go from just a few dollars to over $1 million, you'll need to follow 3 rules. First, don't be arrogant. Second, don't fall into traps. And finally, scale. The first 2 rules are to teach you how to preserve what you already have, because every year 3.5 million people lose their dollar millionaire status, whether due to inflation, arrogance, or poor investments. So first thing, don't be arrogant. When you start earning higher salaries like $9,000, $10,000, $30,000, or you accumulate a considerable amount like $500,000, $1 million, own a house, a car, you get a bit arrogant, right? It happens to everyone. It happened to me initially, because you look at the majority, and even if you're not among the richest in the world, you're better off financially than the people around you. That's normal. But since you're a literate guy, you must have noticed that your money is losing value, and you must already be feeling that $1 million is not enough. Back in the 1980s, being a millionaire meant you were at the absolute top of the pyramid. Fast forward to now, and we're looking at almost 24 million millionaires in the United States alone, nearly 1 in 10 adults. In other words, you're not rare anymore. You're part of a crowd. The millionaire class has exploded, and what once felt like financial freedom now often just feels like financial survival. And here's the kicker. While more people are hitting the million mark, the gap between the very rich and everyone else keeps widening. The richest 10% control about 2/3 of all wealth in the country, while the bottom half of the population owns barely 3%. So if you've been feeling like your money doesn't stretch as far as it should, you're right. Inflation eats at your purchasing power. Housing, healthcare, and education costs climb faster than salaries. Meanwhile, the markets keep minting new millionaires every year. 562,000 new ones in 2024 alone. That's why not being arrogant is the first step, and probably the most important, to surpass the $1 million mark and become a multimillionaire. When you get arrogant, you stop growing. You start thinking the game is over because you've made it. You buy the nicer car, upgrade the house, start living like you're untouchable. But that's the trap, because here's the math. Let's say you have $1 million invested. Sounds solid, right? Now let's put it to work. At a 7% annual return, that's $70,000 a year before taxes. Decent, until you realize that after taxes and inflation, you're closer to $50,000 in real terms. That's about $4,100 per month, which barely passes as middle class in most big US cities. Okay, but what if you push harder? At a 10% annual return, you generate $100,000 per year. Still, after inflation and taxes, you're realistically pocketing something closer to $70,000 to $75,000. Better, sure, but far from rich. Now let's flip the question. Want to live on $150,000 per year comfortably without touching your principal? At a 7% return, you'd need about $2,150,000 invested. At a 10% return, you'd still need around $1,500,000 working for you. That's why I keep saying a single million is no longer the finish line, it's the starting block. See the problem? $1 million might feel like a victory, but mathematically, it's just the entry ticket. It doesn't buy freedom, it buys time. And now going to the second rule of the video, please don't fall for financial traps. You, who already have some financial knowledge but are not yet an expert, are the perfect victim. Why? Because you know just enough to feel confident, but not enough to avoid the pitfalls. And these traps don't always look like scams. Sometimes it's as simple as hiring the wrong advisor who fills your portfolio with products that pay him fat commissions, or putting your money in a brokerage that quietly eats away at your returns with hidden fees. Let me show you with numbers. Imagine you invest $500,000. Sounds good, right? Now, with no fees, assuming a 7% return for 20 years, your money grows to about $1,930,000. With a 3% annual fee, your effective return drops to just 4%. After 20 years, you only have about $1,090,000. That's an $840,000 difference, almost cutting your wealth in half, all because of small fees that looked harmless in the beginning. And that's not even the worst trap. Emotional investing is far more expensive. Take the classic buy high, sell low. Let's say you put $100,000 into a stock at its hype peak. It drops 30% and you panic, selling at $70,000. Months later, the stock recovers and goes 20% above your original entry. If you had stayed, your $100,000 would now be $120,000. Instead, you locked in a $30,000 loss. That's a $50,000 swing caused by fear. And this is exactly how the market feeds feeds on the uninformed. They sell you expensive dreams at the top, then buy your assets cheap when you can't take the pain anymore. Look around today, with people throwing money at meme coins like Trump's or chasing stocks like American Eagle after a hype cycle with no real fundamentals. That's not investing. That's gambling dressed up as finance. Here's the math of meme coin traps and why they destroy people's wealth so quickly. Let's say you put $10,000 into a meme coin at the peak of the hype. The coin crashes 80%, which is very common in these speculative assets. Suddenly, your $10,000 is now just $2,000. Now here's the part most people don't realize. To get back to your original $10,000, you don't just need the coin to go back up 80%, because percentages work on the new lower value. From $2,000, an 80% gain only adds $1,600. You're still at $3,600, nowhere near even. To climb from $2,000 back to $10,000, you need a plus 400% gain. In other words, the price has to multiply by 5. That's the brutal math of losses. Lose 10%, you only need 11% to recover. Lose 50%, you need 100% to recover. Lose 80%, you need 400% to recover. Lose 90%, you need 900% to recover. That's why meme coins and shit coins are traps. They collapse fast, and the math makes it nearly impossible to claw your way back without taking absurd risks. Meanwhile, the insiders, the ones who got in early and cashed out on the hype, are pocketing your losses as their gains. This is why I call it a casino dressed up as investing. The house always wins, and in this case, the house is the early whales, the exchanges and the hype machines feeding off retail investors who think they found a shortcut to wealth. If you don't have the math, the mindset, and the discipline to filter noise from signal, the system will gladly strip you of your wealth, little by little, trade by trade, fee by fee. Well, third and last thing, scale. For now, I've only prevented you from losing the money you already have. Many people fail at this, and I don't want that to happen to you. But what happens after that? What comes after the first million, the first $500,000, the first steps of financial education? To become a multimillionaire, you need to understand that wealth is built in stages. Each one is like a step on a ladder, and you can't skip straight to the top. Here are the 5 stages of wealth creation. Stage 1, survival. You're drowning in debt, broke. Stage 2, stability. You're repaying loans, covering bills, and maybe saving a little. 3, alternatives. You begin saving more consistently, thinking long term, maybe making extra loan payments, and feeling that I can do more drive. 4, financially fit. All debts are gone. Retirement planning is in place, you have proper insurance, and you know the main types of investments. Stage 5 is competence and independence. You're no longer just stable, you're actively growing. You leverage financial knowledge wisely, invest strategically, and eventually hit full independence. Your investments cover your lifestyle, and you're free to chase bigger opportunities. If you earn a good salary or already built a fortune, you've likely cleared the first 2 stages. That's why so many high-income professionals, doctors, lawyers, tech workers, even small business owners feel stuck. They look rich on paper, but they're still trapped in operations or dependent on their next paycheck. They haven't yet climbed into the financially fit and competence stages where money finally starts working for them. The difference between being comfortably middle class and becoming truly wealthy is this: at the lower stages, you work for money. At the higher stages, money works for you. And to jump to the last step, you need to know 2 words that separate the rich from the truly wealthy: scale and equity. These are your 2 best friends. Scale means disconnecting your income from your time. As long as every dollar you earn depends on an hour you work, you are capped. A doctor can only see so many patients. A lawyer can only take so many cases. But when you build something that multiplies without your presence, a business, a course, a piece of software, an investment portfolio, your income scales. And then there's equity, ownership. Why? Because equity compounds, wages don't. Thomas Piketty, in Capital in the 21st Century, showed with data that the return on capital R historically outpaces the growth of wages and GDP. In other words, owners get richer, workers get left behind. That's why Robert Kiyosaki in Rich Dad Poor Dad hammers the same lesson. Don't just work for money, own the system that produces it. Let's start with scaling. Here's the step-by-step. Step 1, build something. It all begins with having a product or service. You can't scale thin air. If you're a financial advisor charging fees for consultations, a developer coding apps, a doctor seeing patients, or a carpenter crafting furniture, you're already here. You've built your skill into something people will pay for. In my case, I started by defining what I wanted to do with my life, meeting people in the field, and getting a job. That was my entry point. Step 2, stop selling hours, start selling value. This is where most people get stuck. If all you do is trade time for money, there's a hard ceiling on your income. At some point, you have to break away from working for someone else and start working with clients directly. When I left the financial advisory firm to build my own practice, I stopped being just an employee and became the business. If you're a developer, this means selling your software to a client or company instead of coding at an hourly rate. You're still doing the work, but now the upside belongs to you. Step 3. Build systems and teams. This is the leap from self-employed to scalable. If you're still the cog turning the wheel, you don't own a business, you own a job. True scale comes when you replace yourself with systems and people. You hire, delegate, and structure your business so it can operate without you being present every second. A financial advisor can build a team of planners. A developer can turn their code into a SaaS product that sells subscriptions automatically. A carpenter can create a workshop with apprentices producing furniture at scale. The progression is simple but profound. From worker, you do the job, to owner, you serve clients directly, to builder, you create a machine that runs without you. That's scaling. It's how you multiply your income beyond your hours and free yourself to play the real wealth game, equity. And when does equity come in? Equity shows up in two main moments. First, when you bring in investors. Second, when you sell the company. Because equity is basically people trusting that in the future, your company will grow even more. That is, you are earning money for your effort, but in the future. In other words, a successful entrepreneur is constantly planning to sell his own company. Don't get that out of your head. And to sell your company, it needs to be a solid business that works without you. That's why you need to scale. Well, that's it, cousins. Stay invested.